And hello, members of the Aluminum Kingdom. This is Jay Harbert, friendly A&P instructor. I want to talk on this particular video about how to calculate rivet diameter. There are two rules that we'll need to know and be able to use in order to select the proper rivet for a stack up of metal that we'll be drilling. Rule number one, we always look for the diameter first, and here's how you calculate the diameter. Here is your rule. We always say 3 times the thickest sheet in the stack up. So no matter how many sheets we might have that we're going to be combining together, 3 times the thickest sheet is the first part of the rule. Then round up. We always round up, and we're going to cover one of these together, and then you can practice round up. So let's look at a stack up together, and we'll do the math. We'll go completely through one of these so that you can practice them and become really comfortable. And with practice and with time, you may not even have to do these formulas. You'll develop a memory for what works with what. So let's say we're going to join 2 40,000ths of an inch sheets of metal together. That's common in our lab and in our shop. Well, let's apply this rule. We'd say 3 times the thickest. Well, they're the same, so it doesn't matter. So 3 times the thickest, well, that would be 3 times 40, which would equal 120 thousandths of an inch. So that takes care of the first part of this rule. Now let's look at the second part. If we have 120 thousandths of an inch, that gives us a good guide, but what we would have to know is our rivet sizes in order to round up. Well, from a previous video, I told you that all rivet diameters are in 1/32 of an inch. Well, that means that if I have 2/32, that would also equal 1/16, which would equal 0.0625. 3/32 of an inch won't reduce, but that would be equivalent, and if we divided 3 by 32, that would give us our equivalence, and I think that's 0.09375. 4/32, which is a common rivet size, number 4, would be equivalent to 0.125. And if we created a little chart or a sheet with all of our common rivet sizes converted to decimals, or we can take our calculator, well, we can see here so far out of these selections, 125 thousandths is closest to 120, and it would actually round up to get there. So if we went to 120, we would land on that, look at our rivet sizes, and go one size up. So our proper rivet diameter, and like I said, always in 30 seconds, our proper rivet diameter for these particular stack ups would be a 4/32, or we could simply say a number 4 rivet. Now remember, the key parts to this: select your thickest sheet in your stack up, 3 times that. We're going to end up with the decimal. Compare that to the decimal equivalents of all of our rivets. You can simply make a little breakdown of those in decimals, and then we simply look. In this case, this was lower. In this case, a number 4 was slightly higher, so we rounded up to meet the second part of our rule, and doing so, landed on a number 4 rivet. Perfect. That is rule number 1, and we'll cover rule number 2 in another short video, and that'll be how to select the proper length. Now, there is one other thing I'll show you that one of my students one time, Math Todd, showed me, and I thought it made some sense, and this may work for you as well. And that is, remember, all diameters are 32nds, all lengths are in 1/16. Keep that in mind. A lot of times you can multiply your desired result by whatever you're seeking. So in this case, we will take 0.120 times 32, and guess what we ended up with? 0.120 times the 32nd, our constant increment, and guess what that equals? 3.84. Then if we rounded that up, we would have landed perfectly on that number 4. So there's a couple of different ways. If you want to build a rivet table based on converting the fractions to decimals, or we can take our result of our product of 3 times the thickest sheet, multiply it by times the desired denominator. That'll give us a whole number, and we could simply round up based on that as well. So there's a couple of ways to do it. It doesn't much matter as long as it's correct. Whatever you're comfortable with and most accurate with, well, that's the way I'd love to see you do it. So remember, rule number 1, 3 times the thickest sheet, then round up. We're looking for diameter first, because when we do rivet calculations, we're going to need this information in order to determine our length. Practice this with some different ones. I'm going to give you a sample one, and you could bring it into class. We've got a sheet of 63 thousandths and a sheet of 40 thousandths. Apply our rule, 3 times the thickest sheet, and then simply round up. Practice that with this, and we'll cover plenty of these in class, but I think it'll help because maybe some extra practice will get you really tuned up. And as always, do good work, be safe.